Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Amateur Otaku podcast. We've been covering My Hero Academia all season long. We're coming back at you guys with another episode recap. This is episode 20, Revival Party. This is episode 2, really, of this new arc, the My Villain Academia arc. And so you can see we have everything villainified. All the colors have been changed to Shigaraki. Thought that was a little nice touch on our end here. But as always, joining me is my co-host Isaac Wolf and Leo Rydel. How you guys been? Leo, you haven't been here since episode 108. How you been liking this MVA arc so far?
Oh, so far I'm loving it. Like honestly, this is what we've been waiting for, fellas, and so far it doesn't disappoint. It's definitely shaving chapters down and such, and My Hero Academia does a good job of incorporating multiple chapters into the episodes.
Yeah.
So good to see that they're like migrating chapters in the episodes really well, but this last one was really good. And I even like the beginning of MVA. I'm glad the opening. I'm finally watching anime openings now because the logo morphs into My Villain Academia and it's so damn cool.
Yeah.
So I'm just looking forward to more villain stuff. Like honestly, drag this out for as long as you guys need. We got what, 4 or 5 more episodes? Let's go.
Yeah, we've got 5 more. This one is a Toga centric episode. So we kind of pick up from last week where the League is moving forward with Tomer's plan of setting up the Liberation Army to fight Gigantomachia, which, again, I just want to emphasize how great strategy that is from Shigaraki. He's a character who we've known practically since the beginning of the series, but we finally get to see, like, we didn't know he was this kind of master tactician in this way, at least. Kind of on par with Deku on how he's just kind of planning this scheme, really, to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. But as the League moves forward with that plan, we discover that the Liberation Army, we already knew they had numbers of over 100,000. But also, just about every civilian in this little city are surprisingly strong, and they have like warrior level, mastery with their quirk. And so, again, this episode's very Toga centric, where Curious, one of the heads of the Liberation, is kind of like this reporter, and she's trying to figure out what makes Toga tick, right? We delve into her past and all this great stuff on why her quirk kind of like makes her crave blood, and that's the reason why she doesn't fit into a normal society. So much so that Toga doesn't even really have a sense of what normalcy is. And so, Isaac, I just want your quick thoughts on this episode. And do you like how we're kind of focusing one villain at a time? Because it's like next episode seems to be about twice, and that's
I
exciting.
think, honestly, I think it's a good idea because it's. How should I put it? Is it disappointing that they have shaved off and wait so long with this whole arc? Absolutely. But seeing this second episode and all, it feels like they're doing a good job, all things considered, with this arc so far, at least.
Yeah.
Even if the cut content from the previous episode kind of sucked.
Yeah, the content is being remixed entirely at this point. I know we were talking last week about how it adapted like 5 chapters, you said. And so the pace is really picked up from the rest of the season. That was adapting at most 2, oftentimes. And this one, they adapted 2 pages from chapter 218, 9 pages from chapter 224, 25, and 26, 8 pages from 227, and the entirety of chapter 228, which just me saying that is showing how they're kind of jumping throughout the timeline to piece this all together. But it's paying off. Like, I think making this Toga-centric, instead of stretching out her fight over the course of the next 4 episodes, right? Sprinkling in everybody else, like whatever Dabi's about to do twice and Shigaraki. Having that primary focus and seeing like the trauma that Toga has, and like being able just to focus and cue in on that with her and Curious, I think was really well done. And they are censoring things, but it's still brutal, guys. Like the way she takes down Curious is just insane.
Oh my god! I mean, seriously, I was like, "This is My Hero Academia rated R, y'all." Jeez, like, I mean, we knew it was gonna happen as soon as she changed to Ochako since we read the manga, but I didn't realize they would like show the blood splashing all up from the bodies, like hanging in the air and just crashing back down. I was like, "Oh, okay, they went all the way with that. All right." But
Yeah,
I'm
they
glad
went there.
it's like you're saying, I'm glad they are jumping around to really focus every episode on a villain, it seems like. Especially next one will be twice. I'm sure Shigaraki will be after that because there were little blips and moments in this episode where his quirk improves, which won't get too far ahead there, but it's cool to see how they're handling that, I guess.
Yeah.
I wonder if it was a calculated move by them.
I mean, Bones knows what they're doing. As frustrating as it's been, in the end, it's paying off, right? The movie is one of the highest grossing anime films of all time. The anime is still one of the most watched shows of the year. It may be frustrating a little bit, but they clearly knew what they were doing, and it's paying off on both ends for them. I do want to mention, because you pointed out, Leo, that Shigaraki and Toga's quirks kind of improved, right? They kind of went to another level with their power.
Yeah.
This is the first time, I think, besides like Deku, who can barely use his power at all. This is the first time we've seen like a quirk evolution, right? Where somebody had a base power and then it just changes slightly and gets better. Like she can now use the quirks of the people she's turning into. Shigaraki can now decay without touching you. Is this the first time we've seen like a quirk evolution?
Yeah, I think besides One for All getting Black Whip, I think a lot of it kind of what I was thinking in that moment was like it was almost like the equivalent of like some of the students finding their inner power, like especially Todoroki using the ice more, and in cases where like where Kirishima fought to damn near the death in the last season. It's kind of like those moments, and I wonder if the League of Villains this entire time has had to go that ham. I don't think they've really been tested that far, and this is like pushing them so far that it's like evolving them.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I think the last time we've seen the majority of the League of Villains in action had to have been that training camp arc, right, in season 3, I would think. And during that arc, the mission was just to capture Bakugo, and they did that pretty easily, all things considered. They didn't really have to go this far fighting an army. So I guess, you know, you mentioned Todoroki. Difference with that is at least Todoroki already had that power.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how I feel about quirks evolving to that point where, like, that's a big upgrade where Toga basically just got Monoma's quirk of being able to copy somebody's ability, right? That's an entirely different power.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting how it's pushing the series in a completely new direction. And I like how you mentioned Black Whip, because now it kind of ties the entire season together as a whole of evolution, right? Improvement, getting better. All 3 of these little arcs we've had this season are kind of tying into that theme. And I think that's going to set up a really strong season 6 where everybody has a power up. So, what are your guys' thoughts on the Meta Liberation Army? I kind of thought they would dive into what their entire deal is in this episode. They kind of skimmed through it a little bit. Again, they cut some content out of the manga, so if you want to know the full story, you might have to start reading this arc a little bit, because they didn't really go into too much with Destro and Redestro. But just the idea of this army kind of just like laying in wait, something that All Might doesn't even know about, I just think is insane and kind of crazy how they were about to rise up to power with or without the League of Villains' help.
I'm sorry, repeat the question.
What are your thoughts on the Liberation Army? Was the initial question.
I like the philosophy. And I liked that in this episode, they kind of touched on how they were like, what we both want is very similar.
Mm-hmm.
Because the League of Villains just wants a world that's like safe for villains, and they all kind of have their own motives in the League of Villains. But at the same time, their overall visions are very similar.
Yeah.
But I just wonder the Meta Liberation Army. My biggest thing about them is I'm like, okay, if you have 110,000 people, what's stopping you from attacking the Hero Society? Like, what is stopping you guys? And maybe I'll dive deep here. It's been a while since I read it in the manga, so maybe they will talk about that a little bit more. That would be nice to elaborate on, because to be honest, that's one point that I don't quite recall.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, with 110,000 people, you guys are just chilling in this little abandoned village. Like, what? Why not attack?
Yeah, it almost feels like, they were destined for the League of Villains, right? They kind of need that all for one type leader to rally them together, which would, the anime already showed this, inevitably being Shigaraki leading this liberation, because we already know in 4 months something's going to happen. And yeah, it's kind of weird how they're just sitting on this. They have this many people. The symbol of peace is gone. I mean, I don't know if Endeavor can beat 100,000 people alone, So it's kind of strange that they were just sort of waiting to be taken over, which again, the anime has already told us that they will be. We've already seen in present day, even Hawks is working with the Liberation now, him and Slide and Go. So I don't know, man. It feels like there's more to them, but I don't know, especially with the way things have been cut. I don't know if the anime is going to actually touch on it. It kind of feels like they're just the obstacle in the league's way, and we're just watching the league beat them.
Yeah, like I do want to know a little bit more as to why, because it does feel like a convenience a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to know more as to why they were just like staying covert, staying kind of in the shadows. Is it because they maybe aren't as villainous as the League of Villains, and instead of like wanting to attack, maybe they wanted to persuade? I don't know, man. I'm like, with 110,000 people, like, there goes all the pro heroes. Like, they're done. Like, Hero Society is done against 110,000 people. But I'm gonna be quiet before I start spoiling. I'm done.
You make a good point, though. Like, maybe, like you said, they are trying to persuade. That's why they're passing those Liberation Army books or Liberation books out, right? We saw that Hawks was giving them to Midoriya and Todoroki and Bakugo and Endeavor. Granted, Endeavor's had a code written in there, but it's probably the idea of sharing their beliefs with the rest of the world to kind of change it that way instead of just full-on attack. Because Shigaraki also said that he wants to destroy everything in the last week's episode. So I don't think they quite agree with him either. So I guess that's why it's a good conflict, because on one hand, you're kind of rooting for the League of Villains to take them down. But on the other, we don't want Shigaraki to be in power either. And so I kind of like how the story is setting it up where you're rooting for Deku, you're rooting for Shigaraki, but once they come to blows, now it's like, okay, I'm slightly conflicted, though obviously you're still rooting for the heroes in this equation, because again, they're both the successors of All for One and One for All. So they're going to have to come to blows eventually. And I like how this is kind of setting up Shigaraki and Deku being, again, quite similar in the sense of how they plan their mentalities. It's just kind of flipped in reverse for Shigaraki.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Like, Shigaraki is kind of the extreme of their little setup, because I'm sure, passing around the books, the notion of just talking to people about it and trying to manipulate people to join the army It's more of we want the people to join us and rally with us against these ideals instead of let's just full on attack and destroy everything.
For sure. Isaac, what are your thoughts on the liberation and this entire conflict with the League?
I mean, I think you're quite on point there, because it just the fact that they have the manuscript shared around. Although it is interesting how the authority allows it to be pretty much openly publicity. What's it? No, public printed and distributed. Honestly, but I digress.
Yeah,
Even when
it's just his biography, right? That's probably what they're thinking.
But even then, I think it's. I think that book is pretty clear as an indication of they have a less destructive way of thinking when it comes to liberate society, and they are just biding their time. That okay, if they need to attack, they do need to attack, but they rather take the what's it called they buy their time and take safety in numbers.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Of they were probably again. I think it's interesting how the entire League of Villains setup is every season somebody's just trying to join them or take them over. That was what Overhaul did. They wanted to team up with Stain. Now the Liberation is all like join us or blah blah blah. And I just think that's really interesting how the League has done one thing and now they're like this focal point of all of villainy really in this entire My Hero Academia universe. And it again though makes them very sympathetic, like Toga's entire backstory of how she was raised and the quirk that she has. It starts to raise questions on is are the Meta Liberation Army right? In the sense that, yeah, Toga's entire life has gone down this path because she wasn't allowed to be who she was meant to be, really. Like her quirk involves blood. Therefore, she needs blood. But her sucking the blood out of people is inherently evil, right? And it kind of falls in that gray area of do we have to suppress Toga for the greater good of the world and not let her be who she is? Or do we liberate everybody and she's just going around stabbing people, drinking their blood all day? And those are the questions that we didn't really think about up until this point in the series. And so over 100 episodes in, over 200 chapters in, it's kind of playing both sides of that coin of how far is too far, and a hero really has to save everyone, right? Like Toga and Twice, we've already known Twice's backstory, kind of getting lost in the shuffle here to keep order for the rest of the world. I like how it's asking those questions and how, again, it's making the villains very sympathetic to where it's like, yeah, maybe they do need a form of liberation, even if it's not as drastic as they want to go.
100%. Like I really do like that we get to kind of see this perspective that the League of Villains kind of have these quirks that are almost rejected by society in a sense. Like how could Shigaraki's quirk really fit as a hero? You know what I mean? Like how could he be a hero? Because man, now that his quirk is evolving to be able to just decay people by looking at them.
Yeah.
It's a little gruesome if you're a hero, man, and like Toga craving the blood. I mean, it's a lot.
But not just being heroes, just like living every day. Because again, we had Shigaraki, or a little piece of Shigaraki's backstory in the episode before this, and it's like he, as a child, decayed his entire family, or like Eri, right? She rewound her dad out of existence. And it's like with quirks like that, it's just
Fuck.
it's dark, man. And it's like, how do you expect people to live normal lives when at 5 years old they killed their parents by mistake? It's just it's really weird, especially in the last episode where All For One is basically being All Might to Shigaraki, right? Saying, I am here, I'm gonna protect you, blah blah blah, you can live with me now. I can see why he sides with All For One, because he's literally the only one who came to his rescue, who came to his aid. Same with Toga, like the only people who accepted her were the League of Villains. Same with Twice. And so I kind of like the parallel between, again, Deku and Shigaraki, of the only one who believed in Deku was All Might, but also how they kind of found their own families, right? In this society, Deku in the hero world, the League in the villain world, they found that sense of unity and family, and that is what brings the two to blows, because both can't stand. At least not yet. They're gonna have to explain, the win-win scenario for everybody into the series, and that might be the end game, honestly, for the series. But I just think it's really interesting, and I like how we've taken a completely different direction since that Shirakumo episode. Things have gotten darker, more intense. We've been adapting more chapters per episode, so there's less flashbacks, and I'm just really digging it, guys. I'm loving the pace. I'm loving everything about MVA so far, and the end of this season seems to be really, really strong.
Same here, and it makes it easy to like cheer for the villains, to be honest. Like giving them perspective, getting to explore their backstory. And like you were saying with All For One, with All For One, it's like he found Shigaraki and was so willing to like take him in and like show him, help him with his quirk. It's like, damn, that's the exact way All Might did Deku. Like it's hard not to sympathize with somebody who was saved from such a dark situation. Like, how do you not like understand? You know what I mean? It's understandable that he would view All For One as his one for all.
Yeah, exactly. And again, though, that's what makes this arc so interesting, kind of flipping everything on its head. And again, with Toga, just like the way the episode ends is just very cathartic, right? We have this breakthrough, we have this quirk evolution for her, and then it just sort of ends there, right? And now Twice is crying, and that leads into the next part of the story. And it's just like, that's what makes NBA so engaging, is that it's not the happy-go-lucky My Hero Academia we've been used to. They will just hit you with emotion and just leave you there for a chapter, leave you there for an episode, and then next week hit you with it again. And there's only 5 episodes left this season, and even if they end up cutting out some content here or there, I'm just really liking the direction they're going. And Isaac, I just want your quick thoughts on how they've been handling everything, because again, I think they really are hammering that point home and kind of highlighting the differences between the heroes and villains, but also making you realize that they're not so different.
It's all about the question of nature versus nurture in this case. That kind of a question. What would have happened? I mean, let's face it, it would never been able to make Toga do as she wants all the time, all the things considered, but maybe you could have helped her control it, or maybe fixing containing some substitute for it, so she could continue on, if that makes any sense.
Right. Yeah.
Just helping her. But also, before we continue, I'm just gonna do one thing, and that is to show this, just to have a mood swing for all this dark talk.
Eri-chan!
This is just so adorable. Anyway.
No.
But like I said, it's all about nature versus nurture in this case, and it's this this episode. I don't know what it is, but there is something about this week's chapter that we're going into that I find very interesting. That lines up with this episode also, but I take that when we goes there.
We'll
I think you know what I mean.
For sure. Yeah, we'll get to chapter 324 in a second. I do. What was my point here? Yeah. First off, we needed Aerie as a timeline cleanse the other day because people have been arguing over this arc and things in the manga, and it's just been hysteria in the My Hero fandom for a while now. One thing I want to ask you guys though, do you think pacing is going too quickly? Because at first, again, we were adapting 2 chapters an episode. Now we're adapting 5. Is it going, Leo? Do you think it's going a little too quickly? Do you wish we had a little slower burn, or are you liking the kind of fast paced story?
I'm liking where it's going so far. To be honest, I don't think you need to really. Let's be real here. I understand some of the manga readers are concerned and a little bit upset with the pacing, but I think they did the best for anime onlys.
Mm-hmm.
That okay, imagine a scenario where they did 10. Like that's a lot of episodes away from Deku and his team.
Right.
I think kind of hurrying this up a little bit, giving this a little bit more gas and a little bit less time, it allows for you to still focus on villains, still get some backstory in, still kind of get the point across of where they're coming from and how they feel in this entire world. In the 5 episodes we're gonna get, I don't think we need like 10. Like, what do you guys want? Like 15 episodes? Like, I just don't think that would make much sense for the story.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think I still would have preferred an episode or 2 longer. Like maybe flip this one and the Endeavor one, the original order. That way, that one's a tad bit shorter. This one's a tad bit longer, but nothing like drastically different than that. You're right though. This plays really well for the anime onlys because that is a long time. That's a long time to not see Class A and Deku specifically, but also it gives you a sense of urgency, right? Kind of that fast pace of Gigantomachia is going to wake up in like an hour and destroy this entire city. That's what we're assuming, right? So they're basically got this like 1 hour mission of get through here, take down as many folks as they can, and then let them fight Gigantomachia. So I kind of like that sense of urgency, but also it's just refreshing because the rest of the season was so slow. It's kind of nice that they picked up the pace. There's not as many flashbacks, or at least they're new flashbacks, like in Toga's case. So I don't know. I feel like pacing is going to be fine, even if this season ends on a semi cliffhanger where we continue MVA into next season. I think that's fine. They did that when Endeavor fought the Nomu earlier, so it's happened before. What about you, Isaac?
Okay, there we go. I was wondering why I was muted, but I don't know what else to say because I think you're spot on, honestly.
Sweet. Guys, did you have anything else on Rival Party, episode 20 of My Hero Academia?
Those faces Toga was making were creepy. Oh my gosh.
They have this way of making Toga both cute and terrifying at the same time, and I just love it. I love every single one of those disturbing faces. Psychopath, the way she sucked the blood out of that bird. Ooh, disturbing.
Poor bird.
Hawks better watch out. He's been real quiet, y'all.
Oh my.
Might have been his little cousin that she was feasting on there. Who knows?
Is that why he hasn't interacted with her yet? I'm just saying. Things to think about. All right, guys, that wraps up our discussion for My Hero Academia episode 20, Rival Party. We are going to start talking manga chapter now. So spoilers if you're not caught up with chapter 324 of the manga. This is your final warning. We'll catch you next week for more anime only talk. But if you're a manga reader, stick around because we're talking chapter 324. That is titled A Young Woman's Declaration. So, Leo, I'm going to toss this to you right quick. The last two chapters, really, because you weren't on last week. The last two chapters are really like the Uraraka centric chapters where she's basically fighting for Deku's right to stay at UA, which goes back to early in the series where he didn't have enough points to even get into UA, and she was the one fighting for him at that point too, saying that she would just give her points to Deku. Were these last two, specifically this one, of course, but these last two chapters, were they what you want from Uraraka-centric stories? Because a lot of people started calling her Sakura and saying that she was useless and blah, blah, blah. She had no role aside from being Deku's love interest. I think these last few are showing her worth to the series as a whole.
Yeah, she is the hero who supports heroes. Like, that's her arc. She is there to help her friends and to build up other heroes and assist them. And like, this is proving to be exactly that.
Yeah, for sure. Isaac, I know you're an Uraraka stan and an Aizawa stan, and we got Aizawa for a second in this chapter. Nice to see that he's still alive. What are your thoughts on this one, buddy?
I mean, it's a simple and effective chapter, and it's a classic example of not much going on, but so much going on at the same time. It's the panels, particularly what panel were I thinking of? Panel, yes, a whole panel 11, 12, and 13 in particular is just hitting hard, and just the whole frame of them looking at the Deku that just breaks down is just heartbreaking, and it just how should I put it? It just proves everyone's point that the creator isn't even subtle at this point, I would argue.
Oh yeah, the ship.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, guys, again, this chapter is A Young Woman's Declaration. We first off see young Uraraka again, adorable, but it's kind of reinforcing that flashback we already saw, like in this current season of the anime. She not just likes the heroes, but likes the joy that the heroes bring to the people around them, the smiles on their faces, making them happy. She likes how heroes to her, and also again, this ties into everybody else in the series. To Deku, a hero is someone who saves. To Bakugo, a hero is somebody who's victorious, and to Uraraka, a hero is somebody who brings happiness and smiles to those around them. And so she remembers all the good times they've had with Deku as a class, the good times we've had reading the series up into MVA when things go to crap, you know? But that is what's fueling her. That's what's driving her. Not her love for Deku necessarily, but she wants to have them all smiling again, which is the same motive Deku had chapters before Class A came back into the story. And so she's just pleading with these people, saying that she can't even reassure them that things are going to be okay, because at this point, we don't know if things are going to be okay. But this is Deku's Hero Academia, right? He needs a day. He needs to see his mom, to get a shower, to eat a meal. And basically, she's fighting for his right to be in UA a second time. And also, to Isaac's point, this episode kind of gave us that first Uraraka Toga combination, right? That one, it's a ship, but two, seeing that those two are probably going to be forever tied in this series, Uraraka's also thinking about how she can save Toga, right?
I was also thinking about a specific thing you were talking about off air, and I'm wondering if this is an indication that it's if it's an indication of what's to come.
Yeah, could be.
And since you told me your theory, you might as well tell it here.
I spit out too many theories. You got to jog my memory of which ones.
Toga potentially
Oh yeah,
switching sides.
yeah. So Toga is lost right now in the series, right? She knew that they were villains, but after Hawks killed twice, she's now like heroes. The lines are very clear for Toga, right? We're the villains, they're the heroes, but now the heroes are starting to act villainous, and she's questioning her own morality in a sense. And she even went to Uraraka, God, what, like a year ago? I don't remember which chapter it was, looking for answers. And Uraraka really just left it at, you're a villain, I'm here to stop you. And we haven't seen Toga since. And that's something that I think is going to have to come into play, at least for Uraraka's character, not just for Toga's. But it's like, that's going to have to come back at some point. And Deku's mission is to save Shigaraki, right? Uraraka's is probably to save Toga. And again, the anime episode is queuing that up a little bit, but flashing to Toga in this chapter for no apparent reason, I feel like is going to come into play later. But
yeah, I almost think that like the villains could potentially be saved. I think each and every yeah, well, I mean, I think it even could be potentially. Nah, Dabi gonna have to die. Let's be real. He's way too far gone, and I think he has no interest in palling around with his little brother and dad anymore.
Not at all.
If anything, I could see him killing Endeavor and getting Todoroki in a revenge spree. Honestly,
that, I mean, yeah, that's in play. Definitely in play. We lost Isaac there for a second. We'll just add him back once he rejoins. But Isaac was talking about this spread here, right? Like, I don't know, Leo, this hit me so hard in pages 11 where it just says, Deku is narrating again and says, this is the story of how I became the greatest hero. And we see him on his knees yet again. There you go.
I did not know what's happened.
You got kicked out somehow.
Yeah.
I was just telling Leo, page 11, Deku starts narrating, this is the story of how I became the world's greatest hero. I love how it splices in the first time he interacts with Uraraka. But then, towards the end, he says, and also, this is the story of how we all became the greatest heroes. Which, I kind of expected Horikoshi to play this card, right? Maybe Deku doesn't become the strongest. Or maybe he doesn't become the best. But it's like, his entire class they're basically elevating what it means to be a hero. Because we saw the hero rankings in season 4, and some of them are making a team. I think it was Kamui Woods, Mount Lady, and Edgeshot. They teamed up. And then Mirko called them out, saying that team ups are for the weak. And then Hawks was going on about Endeavor's approval ratings. And they kind of had a spat there. And it's like, the heroes aren't a united front. Class A is going to usher in a new era of hero. And I know we've talked about them forming like their own Justice League before. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be that, but I think them being united after this war is putting them all in the path to become the greatest hero, right? Am I wrong there?
I think he might still be number one, but I think that they are going to be like a collective, a Justice League, a bunch of great heroes, but I think he's still going to be the greatest one, though.
I mean, you can be number one without actually having to say it. Like, Superman's the best, but the Justice League, he never says he's the best, you know? It might be a situation like that.
Is Superman the best though?
Yeah, I'd say so. That's a story for another day. I also love how Coda is in this chapter. We haven't seen much of Coda.
Yeah, with the red shoes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And but it's just, I love how we've been on the Airy train for so long. We need to get Coda back in here, man.
Yes, man. And it's cool. Like they had that little panel of like him shopping with his mom. He's like, I gotta have the red shoes. I gotta have the red ones. It just shows Deku's influence throughout the series and how many people he's helped. The foxhead lady. Like it's so cool, I think, to see it come back around. And he just, it's like, it felt like just yesterday he was defending Coda for Muscular.
Yeah, and then he stomped Muscular in like one panel almost.
Oh my God, Muscular got wiped with his new abilities. Wiped.
That's an understatement.
Dude, it wasn't even close. It was messed up. It was a massacre. Going back to page 7, though, Uraraka is saying when heroes are hurting, we pan to Endeavor, Hawks, and Shoto. And Isaac and I theorized last week that they're going to go find Dabi, right? They're not with anybody else. They're going to go find Dabi. I feel like that's going to have to come into play within the next couple of chapters. But we've been saying that about All Might forever, and he's been gone for almost 10 chapters now. We have to cut back to All Might eventually, though, right?
Yeah, like what's going on with All Might and Stain? Like, what's happening there?
Yeah, it's been 7 chapters. It was back in June when we had that panel.
That long?
Yeah.
Time flies, that's for certain.
It does, but also I feel like Uraraka has gotten through to this crowd, and so Deku can now rest. And when Deku rests, I feel like that's when we can cut to some of the other characters. Like what is happening with Shigaraki and All for One? What is happening with Dabi? Where is All Might and Stain? There's so many questions left, and as much as I love this chapter, I'm kind of itching now to see what's going on with the rest of the characters. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, it would be nice to kind of, once this happens, I'm kind of, obviously, I think they'll accept him back to the academy. Once that happens, I'm hoping that we get a nice little 360. We'll come back to that in a few chapters, but let's see what All Might's doing. Let's see what's going on with Shigaraki. What's happening with everybody else, man?
Yeah, it feels like, I know they said that we were in the final arc, right? The final stages of the story, the final act, I should say. But it kind of feels like we have a little speed run here where we're just like, Lady Nagant was 3 chapters, and Deku being alone has only been really like 2 weeks. We haven't seen All Might in 7 chapters. And it feels like we're rushing into things a little bit. I still like the pacing that we're going with, but like you said, I want to cut back to these other characters because there's so much going on. And again, MVA and the Liberation War, all that stuff kind of got you connected with the villains too. Because again, it's been almost a year since we've seen Toga. What's her deal? Where is she? What's going on with her? What's going on with Shigaraki? All that other stuff. You now care about the heroes and the villains, and it's been forever since we've seen the villains. That, I don't know, man. Again, I love this chapter, but now I'm kind of like, okay, Uraraka did her thing. We gonna welcome the boy back. Next chapter, let's get moving,
Where are the villains, period? Like, what's going on with all them? Like, it just seems like they've been ejected from the story for right now.
Yeah, remember when we all were like, we have to go back to Class A eventually, right? And it's just like, what? The villains have been gone twice as long now. And it's getting kind of crazy.
Random question, but questions, I should say. Mm-hmm. A, where the heck is his dad again? 2, do you think we're getting a conversation between All Might the Lady Nagant, because she did survive.
One, we don't care about Deku's dad anymore. We're just gonna end that here, I guess. I don't care if we ever see him at this point. And two, a conversation between Nagant and All Might would be really interesting. I'd like to see that. What about you, Leo?
I'm curious as to where Deku's dad is at. Like, what the heck happened with him, and why has he been missing this whole time? He's got to work, so
I feel like the story just they don't care. Horikoshi just doesn't care. Honestly,
yeah,
that's what it feels like.
Honestly, probably not.
It's the same with the traitor, right? The UA mole. At a certain
like
point,
what happened to that?
Yeah, like at a certain point, whatever. I guess
they might still be at large. The mole, though.
Yeah, it just. At what point will you introduce that? Will you I mean, I guess now it's ready for you to go back to it because nobody can get through the UA barrier and it can connect to Shiketsu and blah blah blah. And then you're just being like, yeah, I'm just gonna text that over to my boy Shiggy and let him know our defense system. Now might be a good time to introduce the mole, but if it's not within like the next 10 chapters or so, I don't see the point of ever revisiting it. Kind of the same with Deku's dad. I just don't feel if he hasn't shown up by now, I don't think there's ever going to be a relevant point for him to show up in the story.
Maybe unless, the final battle.
The final battle or time skip like Naruto, dudes at the wedding. The end.
He just shows up. He's like, great job, son. My project is finally finished and I can finally be a part of your life again.
It just reminds me of WandaVision where like Vision is like, what do we do at this place? And it's just like, we file things. What exactly? It's not relevant. Dude's been working overseas for the last 15 years or so. Who cares?
Watch Gran Turismo being his secret dad all along.
Dude, that's worse than All Might being his dad.
What if they did reveal that All Might was his real father?
I don't understand the point of doing something like that. Like, if it's relevant, sure, but it's like I don't. All Might's already been a father figure to Deku. There's no reason to kind of hit us over the head with that late revelation. Feels like that should have been something in season 3. Maybe, yeah, when All For One confronts All Might, instead of saying Tomura is Nana Shimura's grandson, he could have just said, I am Deku's father or whatever. I feel like it's just too late to have a reveal like that, personally.
Man, did you guys see all the theories that All For One was Deku's dad?
Yeah, Dad For One has been a theory for a while.
I'm like, nah, I'm okay on that one.
We don't do that here.
What? Watch him secretly be the brother of Shigaraki without even knowing.
I don't think I would hate that reveal, actually.
I would, because it's Naruto and Sasuke all over again.
Wait, are you talking about the Ajura Indra thing?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but that's like different.
They're kind of like that already, honestly. Let's be real.
Like, okay, what if
Shigaraki's
dad was Deku's dad, went and left Deku, started another family? Well, no, because Shigaraki's older, huh? Never mind.
Shigaraki's in his 20s, right? Like
yeah.
21 or so.
Never mind. Because I was like, if he left them and started another family and that was Shigaraki, but like, nah, that Papa was a Rolling Stone, huh?
Oh, man. Since we're in the manga section, I just want to ask you guys, Leo, especially since you weren't on last week, all the stuff that they've cut, have you missed it from MVA?
No.
Okay.
I haven't missed anything, to be honest. Like, I think what they're putting in now was fine.
Gotcha. Because that's been a major controversy since that episode aired, because they cut out this whole section with Spinner, and Spinner gets no love anyway, so it's like, why would you cut anything regarding Spinner? And they're rearranging things here and there, but I feel like as a whole they're doing fine. It just reminded me because we were talking about Shigaraki's dad, and it's like,
are we really that upset that Spinner didn't get some stuff? Like, I mean, let's be real here. Really?
I mean, it set the atmosphere because it's the first couple pages of the arc, so it does set the atmosphere and set the tone. In the grand scheme of things, I get why they cut it though. I mean, it's not that big a deal, but
he's a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. Let him stand there and look cool.
He really is mask and everything.
This episode certainly spin around. That's for certain.
Okay. Yeah, I get the pun. It's worse than All Might's cotton candy pun, which, by the way, the dub came out for that episode.
Okay, how did he do it? I didn't saw that.
He dubbed himself the symbol of sweets, like I theorized, which is way funnier, honestly. But Japanese wordplay doesn't translate well all the time, so
no, it doesn't.
Sweets. Amazing.
Guys, only thing I don't have anything left for this chapter of the episode. I do want to just let everyone know we have a date for the third movie. That comes out late October 29th here in the States. Probably 2025 for Isaac. So, yeah, we'll cover that when it gets here. Maybe we can rope Brandon into that conversation.
Who?
Sorry, bud. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Well played. Well played. Guys, did you have anything else on episode 20 or chapter 324?
I'm good. I think we covered it pretty well. I agree with you. We need to go back to Shigaraki and all this stuff. Let's wrap this up and get back to like the broader story here. Like what's going on behind the scenes and with All for One, Shigaraki, like what's everybody else up to?
I do like how these last couple chapters kind of spawned a series of SpongeBob memes. Uraraka yelling, "Look at him!" It's just like Patrick holding up SpongeBob saying, "Look at it," which I think is hilarious. Or why don't we just take UA and push it somewhere else since it can now move? Apparently, I don't know how that works, but they're gonna have to do it, right? They set it up. We have to see UA move somewhere else at a certain point. Isaac, did you have anything else?
No, I don't. I not, or at least what I can think of right now.
Well, if you think of it, write it down. Come back next week when we review episode 21 and chapter 325. Guys, thanks for joining us. You can find the podcast on Twitter at Amateur Otaku Pod. You can find me at Novice Cinephile, Isaac at Emblemaniac, Leo at Rejected_Leo. Also, Geekly Goods. You can find me on YouTube as well. Guys, we will catch you next time. Go beyond, plus ultra.
Hello.